I got called for jury duty back in March. I'd been putting it off for years, but I finally went because I figured if I kept ignoring it, something would catch up with me. The case was nothing dramatic. A civil suit about a car accident. 2 people disagreeing about who ran a light. It was supposed to take 3 days. And honestly, I was fine with it. 3 days out of the office sounded good to me. They seated 12 of us, mostly normal people, a couple of retirees, a few younger professionals, a woman who brought knitting, and then there was this guy named Dale. Dale sat 2 seats to my left, mid-50s maybe, quiet, polite. He wore a button-down and a khakis every day, like he was going to a church he didn't really enjoy. He didn't say much during the first day. I didn't think anything of him. The second morning, we were in the jury room waiting for things to start. I was eating a granola bar, and Dale leaned over and said, "You live over near Greenfield, right?" I looked at him. I didn't recognize him at all. I said, "Yeah, I do," and he just nodded and said that he thought so. Said something about recognizing my car. I drive a dark gray Civic. There are about 10,000 of those in my city, but I didn't push it. At lunch that day, a few of us went to a sandwich place across the street. Dale sat across from me. We were making small talk, and he mentioned that the intersection in the case reminded of one near a park. He named the park. It was the park I walk my dog at every morning. I said I knew the one. He smiled and said, "Yeah, I figured you would." Something about the way he said it made me pay attention. That afternoon, during a break, he asked me if I'd gotten my furnace looked at yet, just casually, like it was part of a conversation we'd already been having. I had called an HVAC company the week before. I hadn't told anyone at work. I hadn't posted about it anywhere, but my furnace had been making a sound, and I'd called someone out to look at it. I asked him what he meant. He said, "Oh, I don't know. You just look like someone dealing with house stuff." Then he laughed like it was nothing. I didn't laugh. On the 3rd day during deliberation, I kept watching him. He participated like a normal person, made reasonable points, didn't dominate the conversation, but every once in a while, he'd look at me and give this little nod, like we had some kind of understanding. We reached a verdict by early afternoon. Simple, unanimous, everyone shook hands and started packing up. Dale came over and shook my hand too. Normal grip, normal eye contact. Then he said, "Tell Bonnie I said hi." Bonnie is my wife. I asked him how he knew my wife's name. He tilted his head a little and said, "Didn't you mention her?" I hadn't. Not once. I'm very private. I don't talk about my family with strangers. I'm certain of it. He just kind of smiled, put on his coat, and left. I sat in my car in the courthouse parking garage for probably 20 minutes. I kept going over every conversation, every break, every word. I had not mentioned Bonnie. I had not mentioned Greenfield. And I hadn't mentioned my furnace. When I got home, I told Bonnie about it. She didn't know anyone named Dale. I described him. Nothing. She said I was probably just stressed from the trial. That weekend, I drove by the courthouse again. I don't know why. I guess I thought I might see him. I didn't. But the thing that really got to me, the thing that I keep coming back to, is that a couple days later, I found a sticky note on my car at work. Just a yellow sticky note under my windshield wiper. It said, "Good verdict." No name, no other writing, just that. I asked around. No one in my office had left. I checked the parking lot camera footage with security, but the angle didn't cover my spot. I've never seen Dale again. I don't know his last name. I never got the jury list. I've thought about calling the courthouse to ask, but I honestly don't know what I'd say. It's the furnace thing that still bothers me the most. That's not something you guess, and that's not something you overhear. I haven't even told Bonnie about the sound until that same week. I keep my doors locked now. I check my mirrors more, but I think about Dale every single day. I park on the 4th floor of the same garage every weekday. I've been doing it for about 3 years. It's attached to the building where I work, and I have a monthly pass. I always park in the same general area because the 4th floor is usually half empty, and I like being able to find my car without thinking about it. About 4 months ago, I started noticing small things. The first time it was my driver's seat. I got in after work and the seat was pushed back further than I keep it. Maybe 2 inches. I'm pretty specific about my seat position. I noticed immediately. I figured I'd bumped the adjustment lever getting out that morning and I hadn't realized it. I fixed it and forgot about it. A few days later, my rearview mirror was angled slightly down. Not a lot, just enough that when I got in, I had to adjust it before I could see behind me. I sat there for a second. I knew I hadn't touched it. Then I told myself I was being ridiculous. Cars settle, things shift. I adjusted it and drove home. But then it kept happening. The radio station was changed. I listened to the same station every day. 94.7. One Wednesday, I turned the car on and it was on 102.3, a classical station. I don't listen to classical music. I've never tuned to that station in my life. The passenger seat had a slight recline one day. The climate control was set to heat when I'd left it on AC. The glove box was closed but unlatched. The little light inside was on. None of those things were dramatic. Individually, each one had an explanation. But together over a few weeks, it started to build into something I couldn't ignore. I checked my car carefully one morning before I went into work. I noted everything: seat position, mirror angle, radio station, climate setting, mileage. I even took a photo of the odometer. When I came back at the end of the day, the seat was moved. The mirror was adjusted. The mileage was exactly the same. Whoever was getting in wasn't driving it. They were just sitting in it. I went to the garage management office and asked about security. The attendant said they had cameras at the entrances and exits, but not on individual floors. He asked if my car had been broken into. I said no, nothing was stolen, nothing was damaged. He looked at me like I was wasting his time. I started locking my car twice, hitting the button, checking the handle, walking away, coming back, checking again. It was always locked, but things still moved. One Thursday, I found a receipt in my cup holder. It was from a coffee shop 2 blocks from the garage. A medium black coffee, purchased at 11:42 a.m. that day. I was in a meeting at 11:42 a.m. I hadn't left the building. The receipt was still warm when I picked it up. I went to the coffee shop after work. I asked if they remembered who bought the medium black coffee around 11:42. The barista stared at me and said she couldn't help with that. I asked about cameras. She said I'd need to talk to the manager, who wasn't in. I went back to the garage the next day and parked on a different floor. The second floor, near the elevator where there's a camera pointed at the lot. I felt better all day. When I came back, nothing had been moved. Everything was exactly how I'd left it. I almost laughed with relief. But there was one thing. On the black seat sitting in the middle like someone had placed it carefully was a parking pass. A monthly pass just like mine. Same garage, same floor, 4th floor. The name on it wasn't mine. I didn't recognize the name. I looked it up later. No social media, no public records, no results at all. As far as I can tell, the person doesn't exist. I've been parking on the 2nd floor ever since. Nothing has happened. My car is untouched every evening and I've started to relax a little. But last week I got curious. I went up to the 4th floor during my lunch break, just to look around. My old spot, the one I always used, was empty. And there was a car parked 2 spaces to the left. A dark blue sedan I didn't recognize. I walked by it slowly. Through the driver's side window, I could see the seat was adjusted to about my height. The radio display was lit up, FM 94.7. I kept walking. I took the stairs back down to my office and I didn't go back up. I don't park on the 4th floor anymore. I try not to think about it, but sometimes on my way out for the day, I'll glance up at the 4th floor of the garage through the stairwell window. And I'll see a shape in the driver's seat of that blue sedan, just sitting there, not moving. I never look long enough to see more than that. I got a phone call on a Wednesday evening around 7. The caller ID showed a local number, so I picked up. A woman's voice said she was conducting a short survey on behalf of a consumer research group. She said it would take 5 minutes. I was eating dinner alone and didn't have anything going on, so I said sure. The first few questions were normal. Age range, household size, whether I owned or rented, how I'd rate my overall satisfaction with certain services. Internet, phone, grocery, delivery, standard stuff. I answered on autopilot. Then she asked, how often do you eat dinner alone? I said I didn't see how that was relevant to consumer research. She said it was about household patterns and dining habits. Fair enough, I said, a few times a week. And tonight, what are you having? I looked down at my plate. I had made pasta with jarred sauce and a side salad. A nothing meal, I told her. She said that sounds about right. I didn't know what that meant. I asked her to clarify. She just moved on to the next question. Do you usually leave your kitchen light on when you eat, or do you eat in the dining area? I was eating at my kitchen counter. The kitchen light was on. The dining area was dark. That's what I always do, but it's not something a survey would ask. I said, why does that matter? She said, we're studying domestic energy usage patterns in relation to daily routines. It sounded like a real answer, but it didn't feel like one. I asked her what organization she was with again. She repeated the name, Landon Research Partners. I'd never heard of it, but I hadn't heard of most research firms. I let it go and kept answering. The next few questions were about my commute, my work schedule, and what time I typically went to bed. I answered, but I was starting to feel aware of myself in a way I don't usually feel at home. Like the questions were building towards something. Then she said, on a scale of 1 to 10, how safe do you feel in your current residence? I said 8. I don't know why I said that number. My apartment is fine, normal locks, normal neighborhood. I'd never really thought about it before. She said, why not higher? That wasn't a survey question. That was a follow-up a real person asks when they want something specific from you. I told her I thought the survey was almost done. Just a few more, she said. Do you usually close your blinds before it gets dark or after? I glanced at my window. The blinds were open. It was dark outside. I could see my own reflection in the glass and nothing beyond it. I said after. She said okay. Then, do you ever get the feeling you're being watched? I hung up. I sat on my counter for a long minute, just looking at my phone on the surface. Then I got up and closed the blinds. I checked the front door and I checked the back door. Everything was locked. I looked through the peephole. The hallway was empty. I googled Landon Research Partners. Nothing. No website, no business listings, no LinkedIn page. No mentions anywhere. I called that number back. It rang once and went to a flat tone. Not voicemail, just a sound like the number didn't exist anymore. I told myself it was a scam. Some kind of social engineering setup. Maybe they were building a profile to open accounts in my name. Maybe it was a phishing call I'd cut short before they got to the real ask. But they never asked for my social security number. They didn't ask for bank information. They didn't try to sell me anything. They just wanted to know what I was doing. Right then, in real time. What I was eating, where I was sitting, what lights were on. Like they already knew, I just wanted to hear me confirm it. The next evening around the same time, my phone rang again. Same number. I didn't answer. It rang 6 times and stopped. No voicemail. It rang again the night after that, and the night after that. Always the same time. Always the same number. I never picked up. After about 2 weeks, the call stopped. That was 3 months ago. Nothing else has happened. No break-in, no identity theft, no follow-up of any kind. But some nights when I'm eating at the counter and I notice the blinds are still open, and I can see my own reflection staring back at me from the dark glass, I think about the last question she asked me. The one I didn't answer before I hung up. She asked if I ever feel like I'm being watched. I do now.